Aloha and welcome to a new episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, where two dudes from halfway across the world chat about everything green and gold. I'm Mike, and that's Iowa Joe. And today, wow, just wow, Joe. Um, as Chandler Bing once said, there are no words. Um, I'll let you take a crack at it.
Well, I know they kept talking throughout the whole commentary that the last time, what was it? The last time the Packers were down at halftime was the 2018 game against the Bears, and the same exact thing happened where they came back. It's same exact score, uh, that they were down by halftime and came back, didn't score as many points as they did that time, but it definitely, like I tweeted out, it was gross, it was nasty, it was nauseating, but it was a win, and that's about all you can say about it.
Yeah, it I think what's so surprising is they made so many young team mistakes throughout the game and yet somehow kept it close enough to make it possible to come back from it all, which is astounding on so many levels. But I mean, like we kind of said, it's a way better outcome than last week's one, so we'll take it. You know, like you said, it's not all sunshine and roses. There was a lot of weird and wonky stuff that went on in this game, but I'd like to say most of it was correctable, and I think that's got to be really encouraging, both as fans and just for the team in general. So, uh, yeah, let's just dive in and let's just start penalties. I know this is mostly on our offensive points, but just the penalty situation in this game was insane, and um, we don't need. I need the Packers to get a break from having the color commentator have direct ties to the opponent that the Packers are playing for at least a month, maybe more, for my blood pressure and my sanity, because I don't know how many times. I don't know if you were watching the broadcast while watching the game live, but the amount of times that Jonathan Vilma was lauding that Taylor number one for excellent
Yeah,
coverage
yeah,
and stuff. And it's like he's got a hand all over. They had the deep throw to Romeo. Oh, this is great coverage. He doesn't contact with him. He's contacting him the whole time. Vilma's talking through the replay. The one where Reed, he probably should have caught the touchdown on that really nice fade throw into the end zone. Oh, yeah, that's just textbook coverage. Hand in his face mask, shoving Reed as he's trying to get up in the air, kind of thing. And so I kind of was sarcastically tweeting it during the game that it's like, are you gonna call it? And then I was like half jokingly saying like, oh, now they're calling things when the game it doesn't matter in the game, but um
yeah. And
yeah.
and it's not just in our game. Which game? I'm trying to think who it was that I saw that. I think it was Kurt tweeted something about a game where there was a blatant pass interference missed call that led to a field goal that led to the team kicking the field goal win. I want to say it was the Lions game,
Oh,
but I could be wrong on that one. I don't remember, but I know he tweeted something about that.
I wouldn't be
And
surprised at all.
so it just, like I said, it's not just our game, but the officiating all year has been just kind of crazy in that sense. They want to emphasize some things to the point where they don't call other things, and so far it seems like it's hurting. And granted, the Packers have a young team, and the refs have always been known to call more if you're more of a veteran because you've earned it more than a young player. And it's like, no, you need to call it for both teams equally, because
Yeah.
there were several times, or it seemed like the Saints offensive line were getting away with some obvious holds, and it didn't sit right with me with that stuff. But I'm glad they finally woke up in the fourth quarter to start making some calls. Otherwise, it would have been a completely different outcome.
Yep. Let's get to the usual focus of what I'm assuming is going to be all of our game reviews this season. But Jordan Love, the final stat line is not pretty. His CPOE, completion percentage over expected, is going to take a further nosedive this week. But honestly, I don't know if we have the G rating or whatever, but the balls on that dude to make the plays he did really all game, when whether it was penalties pushing his offense back, his receivers not catching the ball, guys not running the right routes. We'll go into all of those in a little bit, but I mean, I honestly thought when Taylor didn't run a slant on that fourth down from like the 10-yard line or whatever it was, I thought the game was over then, because I just figured they were going to run out of time at that point. But the dude just kept plugging away all game, and it wasn't, like I said, he wasn't perfect. It wasn't a clean game from him by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just good to see him just continue to chip away at this thing and just keep, you know, um, just keep hammering away. And finally, the wall did come down at the end. But just, I think it was a gutsy, gutty game from Love, and it was just a joy to see that kind of play from him today.
It, like you said, though, he didn't really get a lot of help. It was kind of funny that I tweeted out that, Jaden Reed, what was going on with Jaden Reed, because he was dropping, he couldn't even catch a cold. And then he has that one big catch toward, that extended a drive. And it just, Malik Heath, he had a couple, or he had at least one that hit him right on the hands that he should have, had a hold of. I think the other one was a little bit more contested, but Wicks, Dobbs, some of those I think go hand in hand with some of the missed calls that the refs made, that, maybe there should have been some DPI or something, but you know, he just wasn't having any. I think it would have been a lot different of an outcome for his stats and the game potentially had his receivers, made the catches that needed to be made. The one with Reed, I think you were talking about with the fade, where he basically had a hold of it until the DB kicked it out of his hands. Um, and then I'm going to go back to this until they make the adjustment. He keeps overthrowing Musgrave, and he's just going to have to, I don't know, work something out, or sit there on down times or something and just have him run those deep routes and try to make a connection, because he's always overthrowing him. So uh I don't know. It's gross in a way, because he Musgrave is getting open, he's just missing him.
Yeah, the seam shot that you're talking about, that's one of those, everyone's gonna see it, and just, the average fan is gonna think like, how do you miss something so wide open? He's accounting for, and it looks even worse, because so it's Tampa 2. Tampa 2, what does that mean? You have safety splitting the field, they each get a half of the field, but then to try and take away what generally is the weakness of cover 2, you send your middle linebacker running up between the two safeties. I'm pretty sure that was Demario Davis. He stops running after Musgrave, and Vilma did correctly call that out. He goes, I don't know why he stopped, but it makes Love's throw look even worse, because Love's trying to throw that thing into the bucket, because you have to get it over that Mike linebacker who's on his horse trying to get depth. But you have to, there's a certain specific trajectory you've got to get on that ball, because you got to get it over the middle linebacker, but it has to get there before the two safeties are able to collapse on the route. And that's kind of what happened to Toure on the one that should have gotten them down, basically a touchdown. That's another discussion we'll get into, but it's one of those throws that it's frustrating to see Love miss it, but when you break down why he's trying to make a specific throw, I know a lot of people say like he's trying to be too perfect, but the truth is that you do have to be kind of perfect with that throw. The other ones, like you said, it was kind of a combination of throughout the day. Yeah, like you said, Malik Heath had the one where he's probably getting pulled a little bit before he breaks back for the ball, but he should have definitely caught that one. His second one, Love actually, he back shouldered him a little too far on it, and Heath had to kind of reach back, and I think he almost broke that up for the DB more than it was him catching it, kind of thing. So that one might have saved the turnover there. And then just a few more, like you said, I'll try and take a better look into it when the all 22 comes out, but it's going to be hard to tell off of face value because so many of it, like I said, is, you know, okay, they should be penalties, but if the refs aren't calling them, then it's good defense, like scrappy good defense kind of thing. But it was good to see, Dobbs had, I thought, a hell of a game, and he was the as veteran as anyone in this receiving core is, he was sort of that veteran piece that the team, that Love needed to lean on today. And he was reliable. And yeah, I hate to keep going back to the rest, but it was nice to see them just keep saying, that's Isaac Yadam, and we're going to get one over the top of him at some point, or we're going to get a flag thrown on him. And both happened, honestly. And so it was just a lot of, it looked like they were just banging their head against the wall, but I thought overall the process was good. Love could have been a little better on each of his throws, but I think more of the core of it is his guys needed to give him just that little bit more help. And in the end, those two things kind of met in the middle, and Love was just precise enough, and his guys made just enough plays at the end of the game to pull this one across the finish line.
Well, that's what was getting sickening was Isaac Yadam was looking like a top 5 corner in the league instead of the bottom of the roster type of guy he really is. I mean, he's got to be somewhat confident to be continuing to get shots on rosters, but he's not a top 5 corner. And the way these guys were playing and the refs were allowing it, it made it seem like he was this amazing guy, and yeah, that was really sickening.
Extra
But
sickening when you consider what his Green Bay career was, where he's the reason Rasul Douglas has his Green Bay career, because
yeah,
every other play, Yadam was getting called for some kind of DPI or defensive hold, which I know that's what I was tweeting, is like when they finally called him for illegal contact and DPI in the same play, I was like, oh, they finally remembered who this guy actually is.
yeah. So, but there's one that I also tweeted at you about to check because I'm kind of interested in, and it's the one that you were kind of getting at with the Torre, where he was trying to split the safeties, and Torre's got to come up with that catch. But it looked like Dobbs was running free on the other side. Now, obviously, one of the safeties could have come over and made a play or whatever, but I think he could have hit Dobbs in stride and had a touchdown on that one too. But again, I was watching it a live action. I wasn't seeing, replay where I could back it up, rewind it, change, view of it or whatever. But yeah, that one would be an interesting one to take a look at.
Yeah. I thought for them, like I said, just off of the broadcast view, I thought we continued to see Love going through his progressions. It looked like a couple times his clock got sped up because, I mean, he was missing 40% of his starting O line today, so kind of understandable. And like we said, this is a good defensive line for the Saints. But I thought for the most part today he looked calm, cool, collected. His interception, yes, it's never good to throw interceptions, but in all honesty, an interception pinned inside your 10-yard line where Dobbs makes the tackle right after the ball is picked off, that might have been better than a punt at that point, given what our punt coverage had just done up to that point in the game. So I know when people are like, he threw a pick, I was like, yeah, I can live with an arm punt in that situation. Like,
But based off
sure,
his history, he should have more picks by now.
yeah.
But he's been pretty damn good to be through 2 games and only have no interceptions, and now with his 3rd game only having 1 interception.
And it was an arm punt. And outside of that, there's been one play that is definitively, yeah, that was a turnover worthy play, the one where he put it between AG Terrell's 2 and 4 on his jersey. And then everything else has kind of been like it looks like it could be, but it's because so and so didn't look for the ball kind of thing or something like that. So yeah, like you said, comparing the guy Love was when he came out of Utah State to the guy he is now, it's a night. And just the guy that we saw in the previous preseasons, his start in Kansas City when he got the bulk of the play at the second half of the Detroit game in 2021. He's just a totally different guy at this point. And I know we've been saying it the first 2 weeks, but his composure and poise throughout the game, um, it's you know, this isn't even a shot at Rogers or anything like that, but some people they make such a big deal about like, oh, like this dude, he doesn't look like he gets high, like high off the moment or anything like that and all. I do there is something to it where Love is just kind of like, he's just proceeding at this level in terms of his visible and emotions in the game kind of thing. And when he threw that touchdown to Dobbs, I feel like that's the most excited we've seen him at any moment in a game so far in his career. And the
except for
game
the
wasn't
tongue
even over.
action.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, like it's just great to see him, not only to keep his head in that kind of situation. You're playing down the whole day basically. Um Nothing's gone right from you. The first drive, I liked LaFleur's decision to go for it. Some people I saw were like, "Why would you call that double pass?" I was like, "Because New Orleans knows you're going. It's going to be something short because you just want to convert, quote unquote." But LaFleur said, "Screw it, we're going to take the big shot." And if it wasn't for one, a crappy toss over from Emmanuel Wilson, and two, Love's whole right foot slipping out from under him, that play worked. And I thought overall LaFleur called, in terms of the passing game, I thought he called a really good game. And
I thought it's really weird that he has one big trick play and then he goes conservative the rest of the time. And it's like that would have worked had it, like you said, if Wilson would have made a better throw back to Love, or Love wouldn't have stumbled, because even if Love wouldn't have stumbled, he was set to make that throw.
the throw wasn't that off from Wicks either. Like, I know it was like a foot tall, but when you figure that he's like doing the splits as he's throwing the ball, it's like it's actually kind of impressive how on that throw actually was, kind of thing. So yeah.
Right. So it's just really weird that LaFleur will open up the playbook for that like one major trick play and then goes conservative the rest of the time. It's like, my God, we could be racking up points right now if you would just maybe pull out some more of these once in a while. I know you want to save them for your bigger games so you're not getting them on tape, but what the hell's the difference right now? Like we keep talking about, they're down their left tackle, they're down their left guard. You pointed out earlier that I didn't realize they're down their right tackle for the moment. You know, they're down their top receiver, they're down their top running back. Just open the playbook up and let it go.
Yep.
Have fun with it.
that's really the God's honest truth with it, is just go with the flow kind of thing. And yeah, I don't you're right. It feels like at times LaFleur is like, ooh, that's a little too much excitement. Let's ease off a little bit. Like, whereas, like Mike McDaniel, he gets all the praise in the world because it's like, oh, you like that trick play? Here's four more to go along with
Yeah.
it, kind of thing. And so I know it is one of those head scratchers where you're kind of like, I'll please, I'll have more, sir. But I know Matt's like, ooh, let's not get too excited, kind of thing and stuff. But
Yeah, and uh but yeah, that was amazing to see. Now, I would uh, LaFleur somebody's got to take a look at their decision making. Patrick Taylor has used up all his call ups. AJ Dillon is not the answer. Although I have to give him credit, he's been somewhat effective in the pass game. When
and
they're
I thought he was good running when they called runs that made sense, kind of thing today.
yeah,
Like, his
but
stats don't do him justice because he lost like 4 yards on that play where Josiah DeGuara blocked nobody and stuff.
well, and
It's
they
like,
keep
yeah,
I don't understand it, but they keep giving him pitches. Don't
yeah.
pitch it to him. Just give it to him and let him go. But even then, he's still not doing 100% of what he should be doing. But like I said, Patrick Taylor's out of call ups. Emmanuel Wilson, we're not sure yet. He had the showing in the preseason, but he really hasn't had. I mean, he had one really solid run today, which was pretty good. Aaron Jones is hurt, but they figure he was practicing, so they were kind of saving him for Thursday night. Makes sense, no problem. But there's nothing else. And they're not going to be able to rely on Dylan. I mean, he's kind of reminding me in a way of Brandon Jackson, where Brandon Jackson couldn't rush up the middle to save his life, but you put him in the passing game, and he was the ultimate weapon. And you're kind of seeing that now with Dylan, where if Dylan maybe he'll get you a few yards in the run game, but if you throw it to him, he's going to get you 100 more yards. And I keep saying this, but they keep friggin' throwing him out there. Patrick Taylor is just a guy.
Yeah.
And we saw that today. Yeah, he was doing decent with some stuff, but in the
The guy
end,
you call up to be assignment sure doesn't know he's supposed to run a slant. Like,
well, and it's not even that he was supposed to run the slant. He was just supposed to be a couple more yards up the field.
yeah, whichever one it is, he did it wrong. Like that throw, everyone was like, what is that throw? And I was like, one of two things happened. Like you said, the route either wasn't deep enough or he was supposed to run a slant. Either route, the ball is in his chest kind of thing. And you can tell Love was throwing it for a certain route. And because our QB coach would always tell our QBs, like, he's a running back. You got to put it right between his two numbers. Don't throw it too hard. Don't make him bend over. Like, you got to put it right there.
He's not Aaron Jones. He's not going to make the play on it. Now, I give him credit. He was helping a little bit with the comeback, on some, whatever you want to call him, when he was out flat and when he was the last check down.
Yeah.
But he's a guy. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously he's a better guy than one of us because we're not out there playing the position. But it's been 4 years. There's not much there. And now you can't call him up again unless you give him an active roster spot. So what are you going to do with him? I tried to ask Wes Hodkowitz, but he didn't seem to want to respond, which I can understand. He was, he's a busy guy. I love you, Wes, but are they waiting for the Lou Nichols settlement to come up? Are they, and they're not even really bringing running backs in for the most part for tryouts. I know they maybe brought one in last week, but that was about it. So what are their plans here? Obviously they're hoping Jones comes back and he's practicing. That's a good sign. But what happens if he tweaks it again?
Right, and that's the big thing is that hamstrings are fickle. Like, he could be fine the rest of the season. He could take a wrong step walking down the tunnel and that thing flares up on him. So, yeah, I think, okay, so the Lou Nichols angle, you and I kind of talked about it. The team doesn't release what the injury settlement is for.
Right.
But the rule is that they couldn't sign him back yet anyway because it's 3 weeks plus however long the settlement is. So I believe the minimum is it has to be a week kind of thing, but they don't make that. So the soonest they could bring Lou Nichols back is after they play Detroit. So that's kind of out the window for this week. Yeah, I don't know what the plan is going into next week. I don't know if they're banking everything on, which I don't think is a good plan. I feel like that's kind of the same thing that ended Eddie Lacy's career, is that banking on guys who are injured to stay healthy. But like you said, there's got to be something in the woodworks. The only mistake they can make on the Patrick Taylor side, to my point of view at this point in time, is sign him to the active roster. He just does, like you said, he just doesn't bring enough to warrant giving up someone else's roster spot to.
Well, that's
especially
the thing.
when you
And
consider
who else are you going to cut?
Right, especially when you consider
Wilson?
And you see the thing is with that is like, on top of that, complicating things is, we don't know what Zach Tom's injury is. We don't, they didn't put, the good news is they didn't put Elton Jenkins on IR, which means they think it's, on the shorter end of an MCL sprain. They would have put him on IR yesterday if they were worried he was going to take like 4 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, but he's a freak anyway. He's probably healed already and will be out
I
there
know.
Thursday night.
So, but I'm just bringing up all these other injured guys. Devondre Campbell got dinged up today. He didn't come back after rolling his ankle early. So it's like you have all these other injuries to the point where you're probably going to have to call up an old lineman from your practice squad going into next week's game, or into Thursday's
I
game.
I don't think they will because they've got enough of them on the roster. They'll just have
Oh
to
yeah,
activate it. They've got
yeah.
Caleb Jones, Sean Ryan, Newman. They've got all these guys on the roster already that
I
that
think
could step in.
if Bach is healthy and if Tom is out, but Bakhtiari, if one of them is healthy, they might just roll with what they have. But they would only have 7 guys if both of them are hurt. And obviously, I'm assuming Jenkins is out for Thursday already too, kind of thing. But if all 3 of them are out, I think you got to call up an old lineman. But if only 2 of them are out, I think they might roll the dice going into they're basically in the same position they were today, where they didn't call up another old lineman. But those are things that we can definitely cover on our preview pod, because we'll have basically all the answers to the test at that point, because it is a Thursday night game. They'll have had to make their roster decisions, make the practice squad call-ups, but that'll definitely be something we have to keep an eye on in terms of what we do at running, what the Packers do at running back.
Well, here's something that's going to throw a wrench into your thought process on there. There's only 2 guys on the practice squad that are O linemen. One is that Michael Jordan, who is more of an interior guy, and the
Right.
other one is Kadeem Telfort.
Yeah.
So,
Like, but that's the thing, is at that point they're just looking for bodies, because you just want, at that point you just want to avoid Latroy Guion playing guard kind of thing. So that's really all they're looking for at that point. But like I
and I
said,
don't think that one guy can come off IR yet, can he? That
no, Tenuta.
yeah,
Actually, wait. Let me
because that would
see.
be it's a 4-week
Yeah,
thing.
you're right. Yep. So he wouldn't be eligible to come back to practice until after the Detroit game. So, yep, you're correct.
What
So,
about? And I know I'm kind of off topicing us,
no, no,
being
no.
that this is a podcast, but my brain doesn't always remember the rules, and especially since they changed most of them for the COVID year. Now, pup, when is Eric
Say it's
Stokes able to
it's
come back?
same as the designated to return. So it's 4 weeks. It's
Okay,
he's got, so someone kind of made a comment like, oh, like, and that's another one is Carrington Valentine. We don't know what he did to his bicep today.
bicep,
So
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I know they said he stayed on, like, you could see him in the broadcast angle at the top of the screen. He's like massaging his arm. So hopefully it's a strain and not like something catastrophic with his arm, but they're gonna have to figure out what to do. They can call up cornerback. They have Valentine, who we'll
Or
talk
you know
about in
what
a
they
little
need
bit.
to do? Yeah, we'll talk about it here in a minute too. But you know what they need to do is just activate Anthony fucking Johnson.
Yep.
I hate how I have to keep pounding the table for a friggin' cyclone, but this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, but yeah, there's going to be some interesting roster hurdles that they have to jump this week. But like I said, by the time we do our preview pod for Thursday, we'll have basically all the answers to the test, because it'll be, we'll be recording Friday night. So they'll have gone through practice. They'll have had to call up, I believe they'll have had to make their practice squad call ups at that point. And basically their roster moves will have to be turned in by 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday for the players to be eligible the next day in a game, kind of. Plus, you'd want them to have to practice too, kind of thing and stuff. So, but besides the point, let's just put a bow on the offense. It was ugly early, bad penalties on the O line, left and right. You had, and they were the whole gamut: holding, false start. You had the one where poor Rasheed Walker is looking around like, why are you mentioning me? But it was because no one lined up on the line of scrimmage
Yeah.
outside of him. But you just
Which
ran
kudos to him. He seemed like he had a pretty decent game today.
very quiet game. Like, I think that was the only time you really heard his name mentioned, which for first time, yeah, I know he started at Atlanta, but for a first time starter at O line, I'm sure Mike Wall, any of the former Packers would say that's all you can ask for at this point. Is like if you don't hear his name called, that's great. So yeah, like you said, good game from Rashid. Um, and yeah, it took all the way to the 11th hour, but Love, the rest of his guy, they made enough plays in time to win this game, and that's part of the growing pains. But it was great to see them persevere through what was a really tough day at the office and not just kind of lay down and let it die. But going to the defense, um, it's kind of hard to talk about this side of the ball because on one hand, the run defense bounced back. You look at the overall numbers, you're like, oh, the Saints, um they got only 77 yards on and 3.5 yards per carry. Good day at the office. But that was because the Saints wasted like 90% of their carries running into the middle of the Green Bay defense. As much as everyone wants to shit on the Green Bay run defense, they actually are good at stopping the run up the middle kind of thing. Slayton is
Yeah.
done a good job of plugging the middle of the O line, and he and Kenny, when they're on the field together, you're just not running between the tackles, especially between the guards. But I don't understand what New Orleans was doing, because you saw that I kind of tweeting it during the game, where it's like, oh, New Orleans has realized they can run outside. Oh no, this one's about to get really ugly. And then they went into halftime and were like, nah, we're gonna just kneel on this 10-point or this 17-point lead. And it was like, you guys can keep running tosses and outside sweeps, and for whatever reason they were like, that's okay. This offense is so disjointed. We're just gonna I think they kind of thought we might as well just kneel 3 times and punt the ball and we'll be fine, which might have worked out for them better, because Derek Carr might not have gotten injured if that was the case.
Yeah.
But
But we're not celebrating an injury.
No.
I don't want anybody to take that wrong.
No,
I am
absolutely
kind of
not.
a Carr fan. I think he's a really good dude.
No, yeah.
I hope it's nothing serious for him.
Yeah. It's a bummer that he got hurt. But like my point to that is, like, Atlanta put the blueprint on film. Hell, the Saints ran the Falcons' 4th down play, that kind of shovel out toss play that Atlanta used twice last week to convert 2 different 4th downs. New Orleans ran basically the same play and converted a 4th down of their own. Luckily, they only got a field goal out of it. But that's one of those mysteries of this game where it's like, okay, thanks New Orleans, thanks for that one. We'll take it. We're not going to complain or anything, but it was kind of surprising to see them abandon the outside run game. But overall, good day at the office for the defense in the run game. It honestly felt like New Orleans had more success in the passing game than they did. I think it was just because they were getting so many easy completions, because Barry continues to sit in his cover 4 and just give up the flats like it's free Sunday newspapers. But yeah, what do you think, Joe? Am I making too much of it, or did this unit almost win in spite of itself in a way?
Well, what's really weird is kind of like I said earlier about where LaFleur calls out one really crazy play and then goes conservative the rest of the game. It was kind of the same way for Barry, because the defense came out and was hot. Even Kenny Clark got a sack that first drive, and they forced a punt. And it just kind of went downhill from there. Now, was it injuries? Was it whatever? Did the Saints make the proper adjustments and Barry couldn't keep up? I don't know. Um, but and they were showing flashes every so often, but like Frenda showed, Jacob Westendorf tweeted out, the next edge that a Packers rusher sets will be the first edge a Packer rushers set this year. And which is kind of the sad truth. Once a team figures out they can hit that outside run, it's pretty much game over and they're going to do it. Pretty much anything on the outside, whether it's a run, whether it's a pass, whatever, has been getting, you know, chunk yardages. And I, again, I don't know if it's Barry can't adjust. I don't know if the players aren't adjusting. I don't know what the issue is right there. I didn't get a chance to listen to any of the press conferences, so I don't know what anybody said, but I have a feeling it's more of, well, we didn't execute very well, and we'll have to take a look at that in practice this week, and we'll have to make the proper adjustments and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada.
To
But
me, oh no, I was just gonna to say to me on that, especially in the passing game. Everyone's like, why are they so soft in the flats? Barry's a cover four guy, and he's like, what's he do when feels a tickle in the back of his throat? He's gonna call cover four, like, um, but the thing, and I tweeted this during the game. I said, if he calls cover two like 5 times a game, the Packers are going to they're going to have the opportunity to get like 4 pick sixes in a game because the opposing quarterback is going to be like, oh, it's cover four again. He's going to throw it into the flat. And there's going to be a flat defender that's like, oh, hi there. I
yeah.
bet you
Well,
didn't
when we
see
saw
me.
that against Atlanta, where Jair basically almost had a
Yeah.
pick six and like a lot of other people were pointing out, Barry loves keeping his guys 10 yards off the friggin' receiver. Well, that really hurt us this game because the Saints receivers don't respond well to press coverage.
Yeah.
And when you can throw them off their game, they're not going to do anything on you.
And
And if
especially
they
Carr too. Carr is a rhythm thrower, so he looked really good early because it's like hit the back of his drop, get the ball out, and no one's by his receiver, so everything's an easy completion. So yeah, and then to compound that, and a bunch of different people tweeted this, but it's like the refs are letting the Saints DBs get away with anything they want. Barry's like, I'm just gonna keep playing soft coverage, and it's like, ah,
yeah. So and that's the thing that, and I keep saying this too. If for some reason we could get Joe Barry to take like a demotion and just stick with coaching the linebackers and bring somebody in to be the actual defensive coordinator, we'd have the top defense in the league. There'd be no doubt about it. Because Barry can coach linebackers. He just can't run a defense. It's like somebody gave him it kind of reminds me of the Water Boy. And I know this is like a really off the wall reference, but it's like when uh the evil coach Jerry Reed steals Coach Klein's friggin' playbook, and that's all he runs is from the playbook. Well, the minute you start screwing up the plays from that playbook, he's done. And it's like the same thing with Joe Barry. Somebody gave him a playbook and he's just running the plays from the playbook. And then when somebody disrupts that, he's done.
no,
And it,
that's an excellent description of what it feels like with Barry. Like you said, it would explain why, like, oh, that was a cool blitz that he ran, or oh, like he stunted his D line and it worked really well. And then, once he gives up one kind of fluky play or big play, it's like, oh, gotta go back to cover four, just straight across cover four. No,
yeah.
no disguise, no nothing.
And, and it sucks because the defense is what's supposed to be carrying the team right now. They're the most veteran group of the team. They should be the ones making the play. They should be setting the tone, but they're not. And the offense is having to try to adjust to it.
Yeah, it's a shame, but yeah, just like you said, the what we're alluding to there is these are all guys with talent. Everyone makes the comment there's however many first round picks on this defense, and you do see it from guys, especially the guy that we're about to talk about in a little bit, who is definitely back from injury. But I mean, you see it on a play you'll see Savage flash on a play here. You'll see Quay is probably the best, most steady player on defense at this point through the season. Kenny is always going to be disruptive, but I feel like because Barry is so willing to just sit in his cover four, he just has his guys waiting for something to happen, and you bring out all the worst parts of guys like Savage or Razul trying to break down in space, or even Nixon or Ford, where it's like a lot of these guys are, they're more even Jair to an extent. These guys should be aggressors on defense, but you're kind of chaining them, you're chaining them to the bed kind of thing. And it's like, oh yeah, just, you're all athletic. So when something happens, just get there and make a tackle kind of thing. And it's like,
Well, I just remembered, speaking of Nixon, we got Nixon on offense. How cool is that? So I take it back. LaFleur had 2 special plays, and then he went conservative the rest of the game. But it was a successful play. I was really surprised with the way Nixon was able to get out there and do what he did. And it wasn't like a major play, but it was
he picked
still a
up a first
success.
down.
Yeah.
But
And
just
so
just just go out of bounds though, Keyshawn. Like, you're still an important player on defense and kick return. We love the fire. We love the dog that he showed, but we don't need you running into a linebacker and a safety with a head of steam. Just sashay out of bounds and get your yards and get safe kind of thing.
yeah, but I completely agree. It just um I really don't know what else you can do to fix the defense. I mean, it
It's frustrating. And what makes it really frustrating, we talk about the coverage is loose. You're giving up easy throws to the flat. What compounds on top of that and makes it tenfold more frustrating is this pass rush is as legit as we saw it being in the preseason. Like you said, Kenny Clark dominates a run play, first play of the game. 2 plays later, he's in Carr's face and taking him down for like a 10-yard sack or whatever it was. And then Rashawn Gary absolutely took any offensive tackle he was facing to the woodshed, and then took the quarterback also into the woodshed with them. It was great to see this kind of a game back from Rashawn. We've seen kind of hints of the explosiveness, the power, and his athleticism on display the first couple weeks, but it looked like today's game was a game where he put it all together and he was able to just finish more plays today. And his first two sacks, those were both against Ramczyk, who's a top 5, top 3 right tackle in the league. And he went through him like he wasn't there on those 2 sacks. Like,
yeah.
it was impressive. And we saw other, they weren't, Kenny has a sack, Rashawn has the 3-burger today, but they weren't the only guys in the backfield. You had Preston Smith got hog-tied on a play. I think Inagbare should have drawn another holding call. And it's like, we're getting pressure, but the problem is that it's like when you have your instant pot, but you don't put the little nubbit in that holds the pressure in, and you have these guys who can rush the passer when you do get into 3rd and long, or any down, 2nd and long. But it's like, they're getting good jumps off the ball, they're winning their rep, but they're still 2 steps away from the quarterback because the coverage is so loose that the quarterback just has an easy place to throw the ball away, kind of thing.
Even Carl Brooks was out there getting pressure, and that's great to see. And he had the batted pass and all that, so they can get the pressure. It just, like you said, they're not finishing, and it's because they can't finish. And it's frustrating. But like I said, I don't know where you can fix it right now. There's no real one fix. I mean, obviously things would have been a little bit different had Jair played, or been a little bit of difference if Valentine could have played the whole game instead of, going out with an injury. So, yeah, I don't know. There's not much more I can say about it, just because it's pure frustration, but you can see the good things out of it.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's the fact that you can see the pieces of this defense where things should be going together, but for whatever reason, Barry doesn't want to put them together. You mentioned Valentine going out. I do have to shout out Corey Ballantyne, who I was like, he's an auto cut for me this preseason. He hung in there. Did he get beat a couple times by Olave? Yes, he did, but Olave's a top 15 pick receiver. Corey Ballantyne's an undrafted free agent, and he hung on for dear life, not pun intended, not literal, but he fought and he scraped and he battled and he denied Olave some opportunities, up to that final drive. And even on the final drive, he had a couple defensive plays, made a important tackle late and stuff. And kudos to Ballantyne for being ready. You never know necessarily what's gonna get you your opportunity in the NFL. And Ballantyne was ready, and he did enough. Like I said, this isn't coaching film kind of game. This is one of those. It's not even like it's like when you driving to Vegas and you're like you pass the last gas station and you're like, I think I've got enough, and you're like, we're gonna have to turn the AC off, roll the windows down, and we might be coasting on any flat or downhill, but we're gonna make it. And they literally rolled into Vegas. The front tire made it across the line into Vegas, but they made it to Vegas, and that was the story of the game today. In all
Pretty much.
honesty,
And point of order, Ballantyne was a 6th round pick for the Giants. He wasn't
street
an
free agent,
undrafted.
not undrafted free agent. But yeah, it's like we said, there's only one real correction, and I don't know if LaFleur is gonna make it. Not in season, at least.
Not in season. I could
Yeah,
see something at the end of the season, but not in season.
yeah.
And
So
they'll make it seem mutual where they'll say his contract wasn't renewed or something like that.
yeah, so we're just gonna put a pin in that there because no sense in us belly aching. The only one we will bring up, just because, like you said, it needs to be brought up every week. Anthony Johnson Jr., especially if Valentine is in any way hurt and wouldn't be able to play on Thursday. Plus, it doesn't matter with Jair because he's going to be on the injury report, whether he plays Thursday or not. Johnson Jr. has to be activated this week. Like, Ford made a couple nice plays today, like that pass breakup on the one where Carr broke the pocket and Ford tracked the ball. I know some people were like, he should have picked it. I was like, he kind of got interfered with. So, hey, I'll take him just defending the pass because he hasn't done that well the first 2 weeks either. So I'll take him breaking that ball up. Like that's totally a totally fair outcome for me. So, but they've just got to get more guys with coverage ability on the field, and whether it's having another safety, because if you have another safety who can cover, then your corners can, you can live with a limited Jair, or Zool can be more aggressive kind of thing. And I think you've seen that with Razul a couple times, even on like the touchdown to Jimmy Graham. You saw Razul is kind of like, oh, like I can't let him get outside because I'm not trusting my safeties to back. We're in tight on the goal line kind of thing. Whereas I feel like if they had a little bit more faith in the safeties, Brazil might play that a little tighter and stuff. So it's things on the margin, but there are things that'll add up quick if you don't start to address what you can, kind of thing.
Well, and on top of that, Anthony Johnson Jr. has experience at both corner and safety. Yeah, he would have to take some extra snaps in practice at corner, but he's got the experience at both, and he's got the ability at both. So if you're starting to get nickeled and dimed by injuries, it makes sense to have all hands on board.
Yeah,
And that was another thing I tried to ask Wes Hawkevitz, just to see if, is he just not showing up in practice? Is there something going on? But it makes no sense, being that he was your only drafted safety, and you're giving guys like Ennis Gaines and Rudy Ford and Dalvin Levitt playing time over him.
totally agree. We'll just keep banging the drum for it because we don't have an insight into, like you said, we don't know what the final decision making process is on that. We can only kind of extrapolate what we think is happening, what we maybe see is happening, and this will kind of dovetail into going into special teams, but it's like, okay, you loaded up the safety positions with all these, you got 1.5 guys who can really play safety. Savage, I know that's not the thing that a lot of Packer fans want to hear, but on some level, he's proven he can play safety and have success at it. And then I say a half because between Johnson having no experience in the NFL and Ford playing half a season at safety last year, that's it kind of thing because We don't want Dallin Levitt playing safety. Probably don't want Jonathan Owens playing safety. They're all on the roster because Bisaccia needs special teamers. And then the special teams possibly could have gotten the team killed today. And let's roll into special teams. Start with the bad. That punt return was little league bad. Like, I get, and like I said in the notes, sure, part of it is because Whelan finally had a duck. He finally hit a
Yeah, I was
shank.
gonna say it wasn't a great punt to begin with.
But at the same time, you look at the replay, and I think Domovsky posted, Dusty Evely likes to use the dots to show like how a passing play went and stuff like that. Domovsky, I think it was, he posted that for the punt return, and you look at it, and it's like there's no lane discipline. There's 9 dots that are on top of each other in the middle of the field. And what that tells me is that maybe one of those guys who was on the left side looked up, because that's the thing is if you don't have someone blocking you in your face, you're supposed to look up and look for the ball. And then on top of that, okay, if you don't look up at the ball, you're all looking downfield, and the return guy is going to your right. You're not you're not punting inside the red zone or the 10-yard line. You're punting to like the 30, maybe.
Yeah.
When you see that guy go to the right, the ball's going to the right. Like, you can't just keep running straight. I don't care if it was called punt middle or punt left, even. If the return man, the only return man back there runs to the right, you got to follow him to the right. And I was like watching the replay, I was like, good Lord. Like, what were you all doing out there?
Yeah, I mean, but with the way the first half was going for the Packers, period, it didn't surprise me it happened. But I can imagine some guys are going to be doing some extra laps at practice. Bisaccia probably almost had a heart attack just from seeing that happen. But there's not much I can say with it. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. It just, like I said, with the way the first half was happening, everything was. I'm
It was, of
surprised.
course, that would happen too. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying. Yeah. It's
And
that
I
kind of
mean,
day.
it it could have been a lot worse. That's all I can say. It could have been a
Yep.
lot worse.
Yeah, it's hard. So that was the bad. It's hard to say that outside of that one punt return touchdown, the rest of the special teams was not bad, honestly, today. It seems
Yeah,
like
they made some decent plays.
yeah, it seemed like they kind of reined Nixon in a little bit today. I think he
Yeah.
had the one return where it was kind of like, and I understood it from his point of view. He's like, it was sort of the no one else is going to do it. Here I go. I'm going to try and get it going kind of thing. And he still got out to like the 20. So it wasn't like he got tackled inside the 10 or anything like that. Like you see some college guys do, but the good and Anders Carlson is still perfect on the season. And that's not nothing.
That was starting to worry me a little bit because, like I said, the way the first half was going, anything could happen. But then it got to worrying me when the Packers started coming back because it's like, oh God, you're going to put so much pressure on him to make this game-winning kick, and he's
Or
going to
game
shank it.
tying. Yeah.
And he's going to shank it. It's just going to happen. So I was so happy that they went for 2 and got the 2. And I know that's why LaFleur did it, because he was
Yeah.
thinking the same thing. We're gonna put way too much pressure on this kid, and he's gonna pull a Saints kicker, and he's gonna completely shank it. And it kept dropping, it kept popping in my head. I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna happen. They're gonna make it come down to this friggin' field goal, and this kid's gonna miss it, and everybody's gonna crucify him. And that's gonna be the end of it. And I just,
Yeah.
oh.
I know. I saw a lot of non-Packer people because LaFleur's done that before, where he's been down 2 touchdowns and he's gone for 2 after they score the first touchdown. You saw a lot of like the non-analytics people who are like, "Why is he going for 2?" And stuff. And I know part of the game theory stuff and all. They do say like, yeah, you go for 2 after you get it within 8 points because by that point in the game. Someone's written a whole essay on it, but basically, if you do stop them and get the chance to score another touchdown, you want to be going for the win. And it's kind of what played out for Green Bay today. I do think you're also right that LaFleur is like, it's going to be in the hands of my offense. We're either going to be kicking the second PAT for the win, or it's on the offense to tie this game up after we score another touchdown. So I do agree that was definitely part of the brain algebra that LaFleur was doing on that one. And it just made it for an even better story looking back on it on the end. But going into the coaching, we both agree that LaFleur goes through his doldrums where he's kind of like, like too much excitement. Let's dial it back. Let's just call our offense and let's just get some plays going, kind of thing and stuff. But I liked, some people, Jonathan Vilma was crucifying him for his first fourth down call, and I was like, it's the right call. Like, you're on plus side of the field. You had momentum moving on offense, like, and it's kind of like, I liken it to what happened in the Chargers game where the Chargers, they're up 4, Vikings are out of timeouts, it's past the 2-minute warning, and they go for it on 4th and inches. And they're kind of the same play where it's like, if they work, everyone's like, what a great idea. The coach is a genius. But just because it doesn't work, the coach is an idiot. How dare you? You're too risky, kind of thing and stuff. So it's like, and in the Packers instance, I don't mind because it's so early in the game, kind of thing. And it's like, you see, you just, like you said, Kenny Clark just demolished the Saints offense on your last drive. You seem to have some rhythm on offense this time, and just try and make it happen, kind of thing. So I liked his aggressiveness. I thought his red zone decisions generally made sense. I just thought the play calling, even the one that ended in downs, I thought that he was being the right kind of aggressive in the red zone. We talked about the run game without Aaron Jones. I thought it was a good idea to put the game in Love's hands. And even going for the first touchdown, going for it on 4th and goal from the 1. I love that they had Love run a zone read, because it's like, put the game in his hands, and he needed to make 2 people miss. And by golly, he said, I'm doing it myself. And he did it. And I thought it was just really good to see. And going to the running game, tailor your run game for your running backs. Jones isn't in, so call plays that make sense for AJ Dillon. Like we said, he didn't do anything special, but on the touches that made sense for him, he made good on those. And his run total looks like crap because he gets tackled for a loss on a toss play where DeGuara blocks nobody. And then they ran that stupid toss counter thing where everyone's like, why didn't he go left? I'm like, because the play is, he's supposed to cut, like, he's cutting back right as he's catching the ball, kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't even like it when Jones runs those sometimes. I've never liked those inside toss plays because there's no ability to fake on that kind of play.
Right.
If the defense sees that the quarterback's got 2 empty hands, it's a run. And I know that Rodgers, and we've seen Love kind of do it too, where they kind of like throw their one hand out without the ball. And, it's like the defense always, but I'm like, when it's a toss play and you toss it with 2 hands, it's like, they know you don't have the ball. So I've just never cared for those. Defensive coaching.
But it could be like the old Favre one where he'd give the handoff and then just fake throw every time.
Going totally off topic, how cool is it that Love's first home win is so close to what Favre's first home win was? I know it wasn't his start, but it's a comeback. You're down like the whole game. You come back and you win the game by 1. It's not exactly the same because Green Bay basically bled the clock out on their drive, but it was kind of neat that, because I always said that Love was going to look more like Favre in terms of style of play, that it kind of came down to the end and they walk out with 1-point wins in there. I know Favre didn't start the game, but he played almost the whole game that against the Bengals that day. I thought it poetically was kind of neat that it came out that way.
This game had a lot of mix of Favre and Rodgers to it because you still had the Rodgers theatrics of coming back late and beating the team after being down by 17 at half. So I don't know. I'm really hoping the kid can really, turn into something. He's looking good so far. Let's stack successes and continue on from there. And yeah, just hope that things start meshing together a little bit more.
Yeah. Defensive coaching, Barry is gonna be Barry. Um, I know the Saints were only 21st in DVOA going into the game, but 10 points allowed is 10 points allowed. Um, saw the pass rush show up, but like we said, it's so frustrating. But at the same time, I try not to get too frustrated because we know Barry is who he is, but get up and press someone every once in a while on the outside. But you know, I thought overall it was a good day in the office for the run defense. And like I said, Bisaccia, like you said, Bisaccia is probably having them run suicides right now. But just hey, if Anders is gonna stay perfect or close to perfect on the year, I guess I'll live with it because his kick and he doesn't even have really like shaky kicks. His kicks have all looked pretty dead center on the season. So it's not even like with Mason, we would kind of have that one where you're like, oh, he might be he might miss the
Mason
next one
always
kind of.
puts some kind of weird knuckle on his kicks that
Yeah.
it would like go
Yeah.
like, yeah. So he was
But
always scary with his.
yeah, so it's nice to see Anders. He everything has looked really nice down, pretty center mass on his kick field goals and PATs. So um honestly, it's one of those where, like I said, they encourage obviously won the game, huge, stayed atop the NFC North. But the good thing is that, like I said, I want to say 90 to 95% of the things that were negatives in this game are coachable. There's a few that are like personnel rooted and stuff, but I feel like most of it is physical or mental adjustments that can actually be made now and not like, oh, Gudikins has to address that in the upcoming draft or free agency kind of deals. So I do think that is encouraging for this team moving forward this season.
Definitely. I mean, we've pretty much beat the dead horse with this one. It's the same stuff every week, but do look like they're getting better on some things, so that's a plus. So you just I keep saying it, you got to stack successes with it and build upon what you're doing right and work out the stuff that you're doing wrong. So, and it's a short week, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens Thursday.
Yeah. All right, let's get in. You know what? Since it's a win, let's start with our LVP and we'll end with our MVP. Joe, least valuable player for the day. Who you got?
I'm
It's a
going to
tough one
cheat
this
it.
week, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit with mine though, and I'm going to say the wide receiver core. Just because up until that last quarter, they outside of Dobbs, they were really letting Love down. And we said it. Love was making some pretty great throws. They just weren't catching them. And a lot of them were catchable.
Yeah.
And this game would have been completely different had they made the catches that they needed to make.
Yeah. I will go with I'm just gonna go with that punt return unit. Like you said, I'm gonna bend it. Least valuable person. Like I said, that's one. Bisaccia, a lot of people say it's burn the film tape, but Bisaccia is burning it into their retinas. that
Yeah.
that punt coverage was so bad on that play. I'm gonna go with that one. MVP, who you got? I feel like there's like two people we're picking
Well,
from
it's got
here.
to be obvious. Jordan Love, without the way he was playing and the drives that he was putting together, there's no way that they would even came close to coming back. Now, I know who you're probably thinking of the second one for the other one, and that's a great one too, but I think even if he still put up the stuff that he was doing, had Jordan Love not put in the stuff that he was doing, there'd been no comeback.
Absolutely. And like just to build on it too, like even if Green Bay hadn't come back, I know this is this is easier to say because we did win the game, and it would sound so glass half, like struggling to fill the glass to half full if we had lost the game. But even when nothing was going right, it was good to see Love drag them down the field on the drive that ended on downs inside the red zone. Even if he doesn't get in on the touchdown that he does score, like I said, he got them down there. And the main thing is, like, he wasn't throwing bad throws into the end zone. He wasn't just chucking and ducking into the end zone or anything like that. You're absolutely right. The stat line, it's okay. It's not great that he's at 50% pass wise, but we agree that that's not on him. At least 10 of those throws are not his fault that they're incomplete. So it was just, like you said, like we've said all offseason and the first couple weeks, this is all about building blocks. What are we seeing improve? Yes, the deep ball is the unicorn that we're trying to catch still at this point. But I think along the way, we've seen the decision making has kept progressing a lot, or not progressing necessarily, but he's kept doing it, I should say. He's still going through his progression, still making the right reads 90% of the time. And just the receivers are young. You're still seeing throws, the Patrick Taylor play, some of the throws to even to Dobbs, I think, had one where they kind of, one of the other fourth downs or third downs where he's expecting Dobbs to kind of bend the route off a certain way, and Dobbs is a little off from what he's thinking and stuff. So you saw even some of those, but it was just good to see him fight through it today. And you're absolutely right. My MVP for the day, just to be different, just because I don't think we should both be picking Love, but you're right. His game, I don't want to say it doesn't matter if Love doesn't complete the comeback, but it's just kind of like a footnote. It's not the same. Whereas now Rashawn Gary's game is a paramount part of the comeback, where he kept setting the Saints offense behind the chains, and it was big. But on a bigger picture scale, for Rashawn to be back this early, at the beginning of the season after he tore his ACL in mid-October of last season, and for him to have a 3-sack game that wasn't just like he just was running uncovered to the quarterback. Like I said, he did work on all 3 of his sacks. What a return for the guy. And I'm just so glad that it wasn't in a wasted effort. Like we've seen some of his other big, like he had the playoff game against the 49ers. And he's had a couple others where it's like, oh, like he's done some really nice things, but it's like, of course, it's the day the offense couldn't put it together. So it's just kind of like a sad footnote kind of thing. So the two of those two players going together, the two obviously Love's is weighted more, it's 60, at least 60 Love, 40 Rashawn, but they're both, they were the two big players on each side of the ball. And it does show that there was some complementary football being played today, even if it was not pretty at any point of the game, other than the final score being Green Bay had more points than the Saints.
Right. And I agree. I mean, he was also part of the reason why the comeback happened, just with his plays. But so, yeah, I mean, I agree. There's 2 of them you can pick from. I mean, you could even add maybe a third one in there with Romeo, just because Romeo was the only receiver that seemed to be wanting to catch the ball. But yeah, it really came down to two guys.
Yeah. And you know what? Yes, let's do that. Let's go and soapbox for Romeo, because everyone coming into the season talked about this is going to be, Watson is going to be the clear wide receiver 1. Everything is going to revolve around what he does and stuff. But I think, Dobbs has had to fight through his own hamstring injury. And obviously when Watson comes back, it's going to be a huge boost for this offense. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But Dobbs has been the heartbeat for, like you said, been the one reliable thing in the receiving room, even if he was kind of on a bolo tire for the first week and a half. And like it didn't end up amounting to points, but that first, the 30-yard completion he had where he kind of gets away from a illegal contact and he makes that fingertip catch on the sideline, like you said, it wasn't a 50-50 ball, but it was the first time in the game where a receiver went outside of his framework to make the extra effort and make a play for his quarterback. And I do think you saw Love play a little bit looser after that play, because I think before that, I think he was like 7 for 19 up to that point or something god awful, and then he hits that throw and you see him get a little more in rhythm and stuff. So um honorable mention to Romeo today, like you said, because they needed somebody to be, like I said, I think it's good for the offense that they haven't true, I know they're building a lot of their things around the run game and Musgrave pulling coverage in the middle of the field, but it's good that Love is not shy about spraying the ball around the field. But I do think even when Watson is back, Dobbs is going to be that guy that he looks for in key situations, kind of thing and stuff. I just think they have that kind of rapport between the two of them. And Dobbs deserves to get a shout out for his efforts in today's game, too.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, he seemed to be him and Musgrave were the only two that seemed to want to show up and do the job that they are getting paid to do. So
The only thing more Dobbs can do is throw Musgrave or put his knee down so Musgrave can jump off of it to catch a
yeah,
high pass.
yeah,
But no, like we said, there's a lot of things for this team to fix, but um, it's way better to be looking at it as, hey, got a lot of things to fix, but it's at least we came out with a win today. And it's way better than what we were saying last week, where not necessarily that the season was over or anything like that, but it's better to be on this end of it where you play like crap for 3 quarters and you yank it out at the end than to be up 12 going into the fourth quarter and you just let go of the rope at the end of the game. So big win. Any last thoughts for you this week, Joe?
no, I don't even know if I'm ready for Thursday night game. I mean, the Lions are really looking tough uh to play, and that's weird saying how often they got beat up on for years and years, and now they seem to be like a legit team right now. So no, I mean, again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. It was gross, it was nasty, it was nauseating, but it was a win, and that's about all you can say about this game. It'll be the first. It's Love's first comeback, and it will hopefully not be his last comeback.
Completely agree. Yeah, just not much else you can say about this one. They made it happen. The chips were down, and these guys, the guys in green and gold, made it happen today. And that's one of the biggest measures of growth for a young team that any fan should be looking for. But that's going to do it for us on this week 3 game review podcast edition of the Packers Edition podcast. Thank you for joining us. You can find us on Twitter at Kawano Mike and Joe at Iowa _ Joe 86. Find the show at Ohana _ Packers. New episodes are dropping Tuesday for the game reviews. We're going to be dropping our game previews Thursday. Please make sure you subscribe, give us a like if you're enjoying what you're hearing. Also, please give us some reviews. There we go. You're still NFC North leading Green Bay Packers are heading into week 4. Go Pack Go and Aloha.